Welcome to Arise Life, a community of believers being equipped, empowered, and released into their destiny. For more information, go to ariselife.org or follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Over the men's weekend and last Sunday, we were talking about one of our favorite harvests of all time. This is the season of harvest, right? And the season of harvest of anger. I had several people say, that was not the harvest I expected. I wanted the harvest Grace was talking about, right? I want that harvest. I don't want... And there were many of our men that they had breakthrough with dealing with some anger issues on the men's weekend, and then they're texting me because you realize the first step is realizing there's a rage monster in the basement, but when you let him up, it doesn't get better right away. Anybody know what I'm blink twice. Okay, all right. You actually feel like you have a bigger problem than when you thought everything was fine. I can't hear that shaking in the basement. What are you talking about? Have you ever had that where somebody's like, you're really mad, and you're like, no, I'm not. And you really thought you weren't? You just thought everybody shook like that, right? And so this goes back to what we talked about many times over this year, is the parable of the four soils that Jesus had, where he shows us there's that one path that when the sower sows seed, what they would do is they would just throw out seed and it would fall anywhere. But if it landed on the path, a place where I've already got the answers, I've already been there, I've already done that, guess what? I can't hear it. Anybody here? You sit in a message and everybody around you is like, oh my gosh, God is so good, it's hitting me. And you're like, that's a sign you've already got the t-shirt. Doesn't work. It's not for me. It might be the person speaking it, you're offended at them, and so you can't hear what they're saying. I've watched that. I've been offended at a particular speaker, and everybody else is just like, oh my God, yes, Lord. And my heart's like hard as a rock. That thing, it says, when it comes, the enemy, it falls on hard ground, when the seed comes, it doesn't matter. This seed has the power to transform your life. The enemy comes and steals it from you. But every hard place can be what? Broken up, right? You have packed down growth, you can open. So when you recognize one of the first harvests we've had this year was in the area of offense, where I can't listen to you, I can't receive this from you because of what you've said, what you've done, or how I've perceived it, or whatever message I got, or it didn't work for me, whatever. And so I'm letting God break up that ground. That first harvest is even recognizing the hard places in my life. But the second one is that of the rocks. We talked about this, that in Israel and in my home state of Kentucky, we would have a harvest of rocks every year. The frost would break up the limestone, and these rocks would float up through the soil. And it didn't matter how many rocks you took out of your soil, there were always more. Anybody? And these rocks of bitternesses and offense. Anybody know what I'm talking about? You ever done this? I am totally free. I've forgiven everyone. I love Jesus. And then you wake up the next morning. Right? Do you know what I'm talking about? Why is it that every day brings new opportunities to forgive? You know the only way to avoid that is either to die or go live on a mountain by yourself. But then all you have is you, yourself, and I, and you'll start getting offended at the bears. Because it's just how it works, isn't it? And so the reality is you have to regularly take out the rocks. Regularly look for the rocks and allow God to identify the rocks and allow them to take them out. But once the seed is planted, right? So the seed falls, you break up the ground, you remove the rocks, get them out of the way so it can it can grow strong roots. Guess what also grows in the soil of your heart? Weeds. And anybody notice that weeds grow 3 billion times faster than good stuff? Anybody? You know what I'm talking about? Why is it that weeds seem like supernaturally powerful? Like if I wish I wish if I were to try to plant dandelions throughout my yard, grass would grow up as a weed and root it out. I just know that's what would happen. Like, I would try to have a perfect dandelion yard, and it wouldn't work. It's just the nature of the beast. And so what happens when weeds come up? They do what? They choke out the life. They take all the nutrients. They take everything from it. And what do we have to do with weeds? Pull them? Now, dig them up? Weed killer? We got to get rid of them. How often do we have to do that?
Every day.
I tried to explain to my parents that maybe we didn't need to weed the garden every day. And then you miss 2 or 3 days and you can't tell the good from the bad, can you? Right? No, every day, every day, every day, every day. That's the cares of life. The things come up. The things that are wrong come up. And so the reality is we're right now in the middle of, so there's a harvest of weeds that makes room for the harvest that's to come. What's the harvest? The things he's promised. The people in our life coming to know God, the breakthroughs in our finances, in our relationships, the breakthroughs of his kingdom breaking into this world. And we want the things he's promised, yes? But why? Who here grows weary in doing good? You guys remember Galatians 6, where he says, God is not mocked. What a man sows, he will reap. It's gonna happen. So please, but don't give up. Don't grow weary of doing good, because in due season you'll reap a harvest. If what? You don't grow weary of doing good. What? Okay. Do you know how pointless weeding feels to a child who's never seen a harvest? Does that make sense? Like, why do you hate me? Why do you hate me that I have to every day go out here? This is pointless. This is stupid. Okay, right? If you are being promised a harvest you've never seen, the process between here and there won't make any sense to you. You guys remember the people coming out of Egypt? They went through the wilderness and they were grumbling. There's this amazing line by this guy leads a revolt by the name of Korah. And he says, listen here, buddy. We were living in a land flowing with milk and honey. Egypt. Anybody, you get a little farther out of your bad season and it starts to look good to you again? Because the wilderness is not what was promised. Did God promise them a wilderness? He promised them what? A land flowing with milk and honey. Is the wilderness flowing with milk and honey? Is God a liar that he told them he's taking them to a land flowing with milk and honey? But they've never seen a land flowing with milk and honey. So they lower their expectations down to the best they've ever had, when God is promising them something infinitely better. So in that moment, in the middle of the wilderness, what do you feel tempted to do? Lose hope. Lose hope. Lose hope. That it even exists or that you'll ever get there. Don't grow weary of doing good. And so some of y'all, you get the signs that God did in Egypt to bring them out into the wilderness were signs to show them who God is, so they would still trust him in the hard times. Okay, I have a question. You can only vote for one of these, okay? So you get 2 votes. You get 1 vote, but 2 choices. Which is harder? Long times without seeing a result, or really bad times that seem exactly opposite of what God promised? So you got 2 options. Okay, all right, okay. First option, okay, so if this is 0, and, okay, this is the promise, this is, so the first one is, okay? The second one is, but fast. Okay, which one, okay, so this is 1, this is 2. So which one is most likely to keep you from trusting Jesus, take you out of trusting Jesus? So who are my 1 crowd? Can I have both? No, Masha, you're leading them astray. Who are my 1 crowd? Okay, my 1 crowd. Who are my 2 crowd? Come on. It's really important to know this about yourself. This is really important, because the place where you're vulnerable is the place where you're vulnerable. Does that make sense? This is a place where you're most likely to believe the answer is not there. Do you know, one day they were in the wilderness, the next day they were in the promised land. Wah, 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 wah. How about Jesus? Jesus dies, goes into the grave. That's a very bad 2 or 3 days. And then suddenly he was resurrected. You know what? God works both ways. But you know the one thing that is guaranteed to keep that from happening? If I remove me from the equation. If I grow weary of doing good. Okay? All right. So just know that about yourself. So, I was asking the Lord, because I had several people come to me. They were like, Peter, you better keep going with this anger issue because I'm not done. You got me in trouble. You actually opened the Pandora's box and now I'm going to die. So this one goes out for you. You can make requests, by the way. All right. Just don't request for other people. He needs that. Anyway, moving on. So if you've got Bibles, open up to the first place we see anger, which is Genesis chapter 4. So you guys know that in the very beginning, everything was awesome. God said, you can have all the world. I'm going to ask you to expand the garden of goodness to cover the whole earth. And you just only one thing you can't do. And it's really basically, here's an escape valve. I'm not holding you against your will. If you want out of my will, you can choose to leave the garden at any time. And don't eat of this fruit. And Eve one day was by herself, which I've said this 1,000 times. But the only thing God created that he said wasn't good was man alone. You alone is a bad idea. Do you believe me? Yes. Why do we feel smart alone? I don't know why. Me, myself, and I. Right? You know, at the worst things, David, when he inquired of the Lord, good things happened. When David thought to himself, bad things happened. I don't know why we think we are capable of good decision making by ourselves. But we are always, okay, you want to hear me? Always wrong. When we isolate, it says, Proverbs says, when a man isolates himself, he seeks his own desire. And we know how that turns out. I can't tell you enough. I'm trying to learn this for myself. Who here has gotten a text at 3 a.m. and responded by yourself? Do you know what I'm talking about? Who here has gotten an email and you responded, or you messaged, or you commented on something all by yourself? And it turned out you didn't A, understand the situation, or B, bring anything good to the situation. Me, myself, all by myself is always going to be wrong. And you're like, well, I am all by myself. Well, then get you people. Get you people. I don't know what that looks like for you, but get you people. Do all by yourself less. That's all I got to say. All right, so anyway, so they come and they end up out of the garden. But you know the funny thing is I always had this idea. This was the image I was shown. God kicks them out of the garden. Get out of here. I don't want to see you anymore. But you know the fascinating thing is? It's obvious God followed them right out of the garden. David said it this way, where can I go from your presence? Where can I hide from you? Even if I make my bed in hell, there you are. Who here has found God in the very depths of your own stupidity and sin? God's like, what you doing? Right? He is not impressed with sin, death, or the devil. Why? Because he killed it on the cross. And so as a result, he's right there waiting for him. And so the evidence of it we see in chapter 4. So God has followed them out. He still wants a relationship with them, even though they don't seem to want one the way he does. So chapter 4, verse 1. Adam knew his wife Eve, in the biblical sense, literally, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Cain. So the interesting thing about the word Cain means possession, acquisition. Cain, Eve it said, with the help of the Lord, I have brought forth a man. I have acquired a man. I have created life. It's the weirdest word. His name means acquire or possess. Interesting. Not an ideal in a human relationship. Yeah. She's my woman. Okay. All right. Now, later, she gave birth to his brother Abel. Do you know what Abel means? Breath. How did God make Adam? By breathing his breath into his nostrils. Who knows? Maybe you had one child and you thought you knew how to parent. You had it all figured out according to your own abilities. And then by the second child, you were fully dependent on the grace of God. Right? Okay. Now Abel kept flocks and Cain worked the soil. In the course of time, Cain brought some of the fruits of the soil as an offering to the Lord. So whose idea was this to bring offerings to the Lord? Sounds like Cain. And Abel just got in on the action. And Abel also brought, you know this with older and younger siblings, this happens all the time. The older has an idea and suddenly the younger's like, I'm with you. It's like, no, I'm doing this by myself. Stop it, it's my idea. Anyway, that was just me as a younger child. Anyway, and Abel also brought an offering, fat portions from some of the firstborn of his flock. Cain just brought some of the fruit of the soil, vegetables, fruit, and Cain brought the best of the best. Fat portions were the best, firstborn is the best. The Lord looked with favor on Abel and his offering, but on Cain and his offering, he did not look with favor. Okay, all right. Can I just be real with you? Is that okay? I'm a youngest. I was deeply offended by this passage as a child. This ticked me off to no end. What is the problem with this story? Help me out. What is wrong in this scenario? What do you see as unjust in this scenario? Okay, so it was Cain's idea. He should get some bonus points. What else? It was unjust. Why was it unjust? The firstborns are like, it was my idea, it must be right. Okay, all right, okay. What else?
He was very angry.
He was very angry. Why do you think he was angry? Because God didn't accept his what? It didn't work? Oh, he works with no reward. Okay? You guys are nice. I got here, huh?
Makes no sense why he liked one and not the other.
It makes no sense why he liked one and not the other. I got there as a 6-year-old, so you all are lagging. Because, man, nobody knows injustice like a 6-year-old. That is not fair. You didn't tell us what was going to be accepted.
My Bible says Cain presented some of his crops.
Ooh.
Abel presented the best.
There you go. Some and best. Okay, that's fine and dandy. But who here feels like you sometimes have had to take some tests in life where they didn't tell you what was being tested? Doesn't that feel unfair? Okay, some people are like, I don't think we're allowed to say that. No, it's okay. You got to understand this. Injustice, perceived or otherwise, is always an issue. It doesn't matter if if there is injustice or not. If you perceive it, you've got a problem. Does that make sense? And it's got to be dealt with. So here's the issue is let's just be real. We have no evidence. People have made this, well, as you know, Jill brought the great idea in retrospect, right? I mean, it was Cain's idea to do offerings in the first place. Shouldn't he get like bonus points for something for that? Like Abel just got in and improved on the idea. So, but in my mind, there's this injustice. Nobody explained what we were supposed to do. I've heard people, they've given lots of theological reasons and one of them is the fact that the offering of Cain's was the result of his labors. Whereas I always saw this as a bad thing, but Abel just sat around to watch dumb sheep. Cain's over here working, giving his sweat to God. Abel is simply giving the provision God has given him back to God. It seemed cheap, but what I realized, God's actually trying to show us what grace looks like. He's saying, first of all, give me your best, but also give me what I've already given to you. That is, he's starting to show a picture of what the cross will be like. God has a plan. Now, here's the part where it gets sticky, okay? Let's keep going. So Cain was very angry and his face was downcast. All right, I think we know what very angry means, but what do you think downcast, his face was downcast meant? Shame? Depressed? Disappointed? Pissed, absolutely. So let me make it even simpler. His face was downcast. What can I see when my face is downcast? My navel. My navel. Remember what I said is all by myself I'm not going to do well? When I'm downcast, I cut myself off from others and I reason me, myself, and I. And it doesn't end well. Face is downcast. I disconnect from you. I disconnect from the world. I'm grumpy. Okay. Actually, I'm just going to say something real quick. There's some of you, when I said it is not good for you to be alone, you got very angry because you said it wasn't my idea to be alone. I've been abandoned. I've been rejected. I'm alone. And I'm going to submit you're in a Cain moment that you have an opportunity for a breakthrough if you'll stay with me. And if I've made you angry, you're just able to do the practicum easier. So then the Lord said to Cain, what did he say? Why are you angry? Okay, why are you angry? Now I have a question. Does God actually not know why he is angry? Why is God asking him, why are you angry? So he'll reason. He wants him to realize you are angry. Who here, again, you've had somebody go, why are you angry? You're like, I'm not angry. Now I know I'm angry because I just screamed at you. Right? Why are you angry? Notice God talks in questions. Who here wants God to be Google? Google doesn't answer in questions, does it? It gives you information, gives you access that you can do with as you choose. God likes to talk in questions. That is very annoying. God, why are you angry? So then, he doesn't get any response, so what does he do next? What does he ask? Why is your face downcast? Why does he ask him? Because he's being a mirror to show him that he is, and he doesn't know why he is. Finally, we have a third question. What's the third question? If you do what is right, you'll be accepted. Now, here's a question. If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? I'll be personally honest. When I first heard that as a kid, I got so ticked off. It felt like they were rubbing his face in the fact that he did wrong, when he had done his best. Who here, okay, have you ever had this? Where you did something that you did your best. You had a really good intention, but what you did hurt somebody else. And they came back to you and said, you hurt me. What do you want to say to that person? Words that are not appropriate for church. Okay, you hurt me. What do you want to say back to the person when you tried your best and they got hurt? Your fault. I'm confused. It's your fault? Speak for yourself. I'm just going to be... What you got? I'm sorry for whatever I did. Stop. Okay, so here's the problem. Who here has said, but I was doing good for you. Can't you accept that I wasn't trying to hurt you? Right? Defensiveness, right? God is trying to get him to realize, is it possible that what you did wasn't the best? God is trying to help him understand, you're angry. No, I'm not. I'm justified. Your face is downcast. What of it? Everybody else is horrible. If you do what is right, you will be accepted. Your offering wasn't accepted. What does that tell you, Cain, about your offering? Nothing I want to hear. Right? Okay, so he asks him questions, and Cain dialogues with God. He goes, oh, those are good questions, Lord. Thank you for asking those. They've really helped me out. What do you think would be the proper thing to do when God asks you a question? Respond? Like what would be the proper response when God asks you a question? What do you think? Okay. That's a good question. What do I need to learn? Okay, you guys are so much smarter than me. Okay, we're going to have to just... Okay, let me tell you what I say then, and we'll get to yours. Yours is the right answer, by the way. You get points, gold stars, whatever. But this is what I do. What's that?
It seems like he's trying to do things to gain God's favor.
Yep.
Rather than doing them because, like, they're right. Kind of like reminds me of Daniel when he stood by what he thought was right, regardless of the result, even if he ended up with the lions. And it seems like Cain is trying to do things to please God rather than just because that is God's way and he wants to do God's way.
So the thing was, what Artie was saying was that Cain was trying to earn God's favor, right? Rather than doing what was right because he had God's favor. And in the middle of that, though, I want to say is who here has been confused about life this morning? Right? Like I did the right thing, or at least I thought I did the right thing, and it turned out wrong. Or I tried to love you, and I got my hand chopped off. Or or my head bitten off, or whatever. Right? Whatever it is. In that moment, God's asking him questions. My response is, I'm not angry. They made me downcast. I did what was right. I don't know why it wasn't accepted. Defense, right? Argue. Reason with God. Is it likely that I'm going to bring reason to a conversation with God? God, let me explain a few things. I'm just going to sort this out for you. We're going to make this work. The right response to a question. Do you know what Jesus did over 290 times in the scripture? In the New Testament, in the Gospels? He asked questions. He asked questions. The best response to a God question is realize you think you have the answers, so you better find some questions. What would be a great question if God asked you, why are you angry? What would be a good question to respond to him with? How do you know I'm angry? What makes you think I'm angry? Although I wouldn't have said it in the right way. Right? Yeah, how did you find me? I've been hiding out.
What do you want me to know?
What do you want me to know? We go with that, what do you want me to know? Because that removes all of my preconceived notions. Because my preconceived notions is why we are here in the first place. And I don't even know which preconceived notions I have. Because they are preconceived. Right? So I don't know, God. I've shared this before. I was in the middle of anybody have a good self-medication session, in sin. And I was deep in a self-medication session, and God goes, what you doing? I'm like, I don't know. He's like, why are you doing it? I was like, I don't know. I will tell you, I don't know is always a good answer. Because that's humility. The second, and then he goes, would you like to know why? I was like, sure. Why? And then he began to speak, and he brought breakthrough in my life when I was in the middle of sin. Let me say this. It doesn't matter where you are, how messed up you are, or how just a slave to anger or rage or downcast or self-isolating you are. God can move in that moment. That very moment can become the moment of your breakthrough, no matter how bad it is. And in that moment, why is your face downcast? I don't know. Well, let me put it, what do you mean by downcast? Well, you kind of separated yourself from everybody. Yeah, it seems safer that way. Well, okay, God, what do you want me to know about that? Are you happier alone? No. But it's better than being with those bozos. Would you like a path to come back? Yeah, but I don't know how. What would that look like? Having that conversation, as long as you're actually in a conversation with God and not just telling God answers, you have a chance of a breakthrough. Anyway, And if you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But I thought I did right. Okay, that's not it. I don't want to say this. What was wrong in what I did? I don't want to say that. Okay. See, the problem is the enemy says if you do wrong, you are wrong. But God says, you have my favor. You don't have to work for it. You are my beloved. Now you can live from that. This is what he says. He says to him, this is God's response. Because if you don't engage God with his questions, he will continue to speak. But you may not like what you hear. But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at the door. Stay with me. Stay with me. I thought if you didn't do what was right, that was sin. Who here has accidentally done wrong? Because you dumb. Because you made a mistake. That's not the sin he's talking about. The sin is what I do on the backside of that. Yeah, like I tried to help you and you got hurt. At that point, I can repent, I can restore a relationship, I can seek restoration of relationship, we can love each other, or I can blame you and shove you down a bunch of stairs. No. But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at the door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it. God, I don't know what to do with this. That sin is at the door, tempting me. The enemy is tempting me with ideas of what to do to resolve my anger, resolve my hatred. You know, we talked about this. We can't stay in rage for very long, so usually we end up in a cold form of rage, which is downcast and separated from others. And so, Cain, I'll say this again. When God is speaking directly to you like that, it's a lot of times your last chance. We want God to speak directly like that to us all the time, like very specifically. I'm just going to tell you, he wants a conversation. He wants to give you questions that help you process things with him. When God has gotten to the point where he's speaking clearly and directly with you, grab a hold of that, because that may be the last shot you've got before you go on the stupid train. Personal experience. Sorry. Now Cain said to his brother, let's go out to the field. I thought you were downcast, Cain. I thought you didn't want interaction with others. While they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him. They were in the Garden of Eden, and the first recorded sin is murder. This is why Jesus said, you think it's pretty good that you haven't killed anybody, but I say, if you have harbored anger in your heart and called a man a fool, that's the same thing as murder. Who here is proud of the fact that you haven't killed anybody today? You're like, they don't know how close they were. Like, I had options, but I didn't take them. No. God, Jesus says, that's the same thing, and it will eat you from the inside out. And it comes spilling out in Cain, and he kills his brother. And so God said, okay, that's it. It was bad enough that you had to leave the garden. Now you kill people. I can't talk to you anymore. Nope. I remember the first time I realized, God is wait, I thought God left him out in the garden. But he's right here talking with Cain. On the backside of his, is there any sin you can commit that God will not come calling? No. There's no place, even if you make your bed in hell, there God is. 28 years God's been pursuing John. God doesn't stop knocking. He is so faithful to pursue. Then the Lord said to Cain, what does he do? What does he say? A question. Where is your brother? Does this sound familiar? Do you remember the very first question God asked in the Bible? Where are you, Adam? How did God respond to Adam and Eve with questions? Did Adam and Eve answer his questions? They did the same, bob and weave. When we bob and weave on the questions, we remove ourselves from the relationship with God, and we take matters into our own hands. He says, I don't know. This is, if you have children, you know this voice. I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper? Right? What does that have to do with anything? What does that have to do with anything? Misdirection, move the blame. Moving on, verse 10. And the Lord said, the final question. Final question. He wasn't asking him because he didn't know where Cain was. What he was asking was to give Cain an opportunity to man up and confess so he could be healed. Confess your sins one to another that you may be healed. But before you confess, you're convinced that if you confess your weakness, your pain, your failure, your sin to others, you'll die. But he says that you may be healed. Cain's like, nothing's going on here. Oh, God Almighty can't see what I just did. Well, I don't want to look over there. And the Lord said, what have you done? Like I said, when God talks plain, it's time to get your house in order. When God talks plain, it's time. Listen, your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. Now you are under a curse. Notice what happens is when people sin, they fall under a curse. That's not because God wants that. It's when we separate ourselves from God, we choose to do things our own way, it always ends badly. God intended for us to have access to his full power and mercy and grace to live this life in a beautiful way. But when we live it on our own, it's always going to be selfish, self-focused, and death. I separate myself to seek my own desire. And that's why Jesus had to die. He became as one cursed on a tree to take the curse upon himself that we had purchased. So the question of anger, when anger comes up, anger is what? What is it? It's a signal. Can we pull up that first picture? My favorite biblical story. If you guys have seen the great biblical story of Madagascar 2. For those of you who haven't, I'll bring you up to speed. A series of, in very realistic and believable scenario, a number of zoo animals needed to get back to New York from Madagascar, so to help them out, some penguins, who for some reason were there, built an airplane out of airplane parts and bamboo, and it flew. Once again, very believable. And as they're flying, because they have so much experience with planes, this red light comes on. Do you see what the red light is connected to? What is it telling me? What's the gauge there? Fuel. What level of fuel am I at? Zero. So the first penguin says, Skipper, we have a problem. The big red flashing lights. Skipper's like, good point. I need the owner's manual. I need the manual for the plane. Oh, this is going to be good. He'll find what the problem is, solve it, right? He grabs the manual, breaks the red light. Problem solved, Skipper. Right? The very next second is, Skipper, we've lost engine 1. And now engine 2. To which the answer is, I have 2 pieces of news. First of all, we will be landing. Second of all, it's going to be a crash landing. Right? And so what I want to say with that is, anger is a signal. If I think the goal is to get rid of it, I'm going to end up crash landing on the far side of Africa. I'm going to end up in trouble. If I think anger is the problem, the feelings I have are the problem, I'm going to shove them down. I'm going to become downcast. If I'm going to think, rah, 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 I'm going to have a problem. I'm also going to try to solve it myself. And that doesn't work well. That's actually the definition of the curse, to do it myself, by myself, separate from God and separate from you. So I was lying in bed last night, as one does. And I realized that the second half of my day was wah, wah, wah. First half of the day was awesome. Masha and I went to the mall. We had an amazing time, just loving on people. It was incredible. I mean, living the dream. I mean, it does, like, I am most myself when I'm giving him away. That's just it. And so, and then the second half, for some reason, wah, wah, wah. Maybe it wasn't a red light on my dashboard, but it was a pink light. Wah, wah, wah. If you do X, but you get Y, that's a sign there's something else in between. Does that make sense? And then God reminded me of the message we were going to have today. And he said, well, I said, okay, God, what do you want me to know about this? And immediately what I saw was a vast, wide, I don't know how to say it. It was almost like if we were to graph it, it was a whole series of yuck at about a level 2. Nothing horrible, but a big sea of bleh, number 2. And I was like, but it was so vague, and it had so many parts, and it was so many things over so many years that I couldn't get a handle of it. Anybody know what I'm talking about? You have like a bad day, and you don't even know why you're on. So you just either shove it down or you dig into it, stir it up, and just make it worse. But I knew I was going to be preaching on this, so I figured I ought to keep it to the, inside the guardrails. I said, okay, God, what do you want me to know about that? Because I don't know what to do with that. And the funny thing is, I fell instantly asleep. I was so wide awake, and instantly I was asleep. I thought I was going to be up all night. But then I started waking up in the early hours of the morning, and every time I woke up, I was in this, and I thought, God, what do you want me to know about it? I fall back to sleep, going back and forth. And the Lord said something to me. He said, the undergirding thing that Cain had in his story was he had a problem with injustice. Do you know what injustice at its root is? Comparison. Comparison. It is comparison, but it's an internal comparison between what should have happened and what didn't happen. I did X, I got Y. Or it can be, sometimes it's looking at someone else makes me realize I should have gotten what he got, right? Cain looked at Abel and said, I should have been the one. It was my idea. I came up with it. I worked hard. He's over here just sloughing it out, watching a bunch of dumb sheep. And then he gives an offering. He probably doesn't even know better, accidentally did it. And I'm the one thinking about it. And right? Injustice. The problem is, I said this before, it doesn't matter if injustice is actual or perceived. It has the exact same effect in my heart. Do you know what I do? What's the point? What's the point? What's the point? I did X. What's the point? And when I separate myself, I'm trying to solve everything on my own. How well does that work? Zero? Okay. So I asked God, I said, God, what do you want me to know about this? And you know what God just said to me? He said, nothing. Then why are you showing it to me? Why are you showing it to me? He said, Peter, and he reminded me of this verse in John 9 where the disciples are walking along and they see a man born blind. And they say, who sinned, this man or his brothers, that he was born blind? Jesus goes, neither. It doesn't matter, but we're about to see this man get healed. What I realize is with injustice, I have a story that I'm trying to make sense of. The only way I'll be okay is if I get justice in this place. The only way I'll be all right is if they pay. The only way I get it is if we undo this problem or resolve this. And I have a whole long list of things that have to be done for me to be okay. And God, so one of the things about that situation with the man born blind, it's very possible he was blind because his mother drank alcohol or tried to passively abort him, or is maybe born blind because his father punched his mother in pregnancy. It's very possible there was reasons. Jesus didn't care about those reasons. He said, I want to bring change now. In order for me to move forward, I have to surrender that entire injustice. God, what do you want me to know? What if Cain had said this to God? When God said, why are you angry? He said, I don't know. Why are you downcast? Why are you separating? Because it feels safer. But if you do what is right, won't you be accepted? I thought I did what was right. What is right? I don't understand. God, help me out. Okay. Well, walk with me. And he entered into a thing, not where God answered all of his questions, but he kept walking forward with God. He kept walking forward in relationship with Abel. He said, what can you learn from what Abel did? Let's walk with this. Let's walk with this. With my low-level swamp of injustice, I said, God, what do you want me to know about that? He said, nothing. He said, I'll take care of it in time if you'll let me, but also if you'll be obedient without understanding why. So, you guys remember the story of Naaman the Syrian? Guy has leprosy, life and death situation, goes to the prophet, and the prophet says, if you just go and dip in that river 7 times, you'll be healed. And what is Naaman the Syrian's response? I want a different river. Yeah. I want a different river. I don't want this. Well, I would also say he was from a magical culture. He wanted something very complicated he could do to make it happen, to earn it, right? He brought money to buy it. And instead, he's let to dip in Peppa Pig's muddy puddles. He's just like, what in the world? Why? What? God will oftentimes could offend our narrative and then just give us an act of obedience that has nothing to do with it. It's that act of obedience that has nothing to do with my narrative is the act of surrendering my entire narrative. Just say, I'm not going to fix it myself. I'm not going to sort it out myself. So I was talking with someone who I helped release anger on their life this past week. And the resulted was massive marital problems that had been there for a long time. I don't know what I've done. For those of you watching online, Siri got involved in this conversation. Or maybe that was God. What have you done, Cain? Wow. If God won't answer, maybe Siri will. Anyway. So, and they were saying, and it was these marital issues that had been boiling for a long time, but they came to a head, and everybody was being honest about all the brokenness and the problem in the relationship. And some pretty heavy words were thrown around. And the person said, I listened to your message from last week where you said when you were in that place of rage, you asked God what to do. And God just said, forgive. And so, and by this point in the person's story, I'm rooting for like both parts of the marriage. Like, you're right, they're messed up. You're right, they're messed up. I don't know what to tell you. You guys got to sort all this out before you guys can go forward. That's my human belief. And he said, but God told me, forgive. You just need to forgive her. And I'll be honest, my human heart was like, that's not enough. I'm just being real. I'm like, we got big issues, right? You know, Dr. Phil needs to get in here. We need to work. And he said, but you know what? So I did it. I just forgave her. And instantly we were back where we had left months and months ago. And I asked the Lord, I said, Lord, do you realize there's some other stuff going on? You know about that, right? You know, because God doesn't know things. I have to help him out sometimes. And God goes, yeah, but it's like a ball of twine. And here's where I'm going to end. It's like a ball of twine. I remember as a kid, I had a knotted ball of string. And just as you do as a kid, sometimes you just make a project out of nothing. So I was determined to untangle this ball of string. And I'm working on it. I'm working on it. And do you know what happened the longer I worked on it? The more messed up it got and the tighter it got, right? And I'm just like, I'm working on it and I can see no end in sight. Because I literally can't even see an end, right? Because I can't even find the end of the string, right? It's like one of those where you're like, anyway, and you weave it out under and realize now you've gone the wrong direction, all that. Finally, I remember I handed it to my dad, And my dad took it and he spun it around. He looked at it from different sides. And then he found one place where he could create a measure of, looseness. Just kept doing that to create enough looseness that it gave him room to work, and in very short order undid the whole thing. I remember going, there is no way we were that close to a breakthrough. There was no way. And God spoke to me about this situation. He said, most of the time you think the problem is solve all of this, and I just need to get enough room to work in your life. We'll work on that. Life is long. We'll work on all those issues. But I need to create some measure of gap to actually be able to deal with stuff where you can hear my voice and not retreat into anger and rage and hatred and self-protection and self-defense, but rather you can hear my voice and be obedient. And so here is this one thing I want to do. That has nothing to do with my problem. That has nothing to do with the issue. Do what I say and discover there's more than enough grace to take the next step and the next step. God is not my employee that I roll out to fix my problems. He's a loving Father who wants to see me thrive. So when I bring the issues of my life to him, I need to trust that he knows what is needed to bring the breakthrough. Even if it's not how I want it, when I want it, and how I want it. And you know what God said to me in the middle of this? Because I literally, while we're doing this, I said, oh God, you never answered my question about what do we do with that. And he said, I did. I told you to talk about this in this way. And you know what I realized? As I've been doing it, he has dealt with my heart in that area. It didn't seem like even talking about it in this way would address it, but it has. In a way I can't understand. The 2 has dropped to a 1, maybe to say. So I don't know what your issue is. I don't know what that thing is, that tight ball of twine, that issue, that problem, that why did this happen, or why is this going on, or what's wrong with them, or what's wrong with me, or I don't know what it is. But I did the right thing. Why didn't it work out? But I was trying to be a good boy. I was trying to be a good girl. I don't understand. I don't know what it is for you. Why are you so angry? Why is your face so downcast? I don't know. Awesome. Come with me. God, what do you want me to know about this? What do you want me to know about this despair? What do you want me to know about this rage? What do you want me to know about this fear? What do you want me to know about this hatred? Forgive them. Set them free. They don't deserve it. No, but you do. Set them free. That didn't solve the problem. Set them free. Forgive them, Lord. I forgive them, Lord. I give them the free gift of my forgiveness. They owe me nothing. And I bless them to walk in freedom. I don't have to control the narrative. I don't have to control. I give them to you. I give the situation to you. I hand you the ball of twine. And whatever you say to do, that's what I'm going to do. Even if it doesn't look like it solves the problem, that's what I'm going to do. I trust you, God. I trust you. If we could have the worship team come up. As I said, anger is connected to an idea that something is wrong, aka some sort of injustice. And that means there almost always is forgiveness needs to happen. And as I said, forgiveness is never earned. It's never warranted. It's never justified, but it's been paid for on the cross. That you and I could be set free from the rage, set free from the fear. So we go into worship now. Lean into the Father. Ask him, Lord, what do you want me to know about this? Ask him. Lift up your face. Don't let your face be downcast. Lift it up and look him in the eye. As we stand, let's worship him and listen to his voice. God, wow. You're never failing. You said, even if we turn our back on you, you won't turn your back on us. Because how can you reject yourself? You've made us one with you. God, I thank you that when we surrender anger, when we forgive, that empowers us to walk in one of the most violent weapons in your arsenal, gratitude. Lord, it's not a mistake that you are digging up anger right before Thanksgiving. Many of us were forgiving the very people we're about to see. And when we forgive, you can write a new story. And when you write a new story, you start with gratitude. And God, I ask right now that you would stir up gratitude in our hearts. Lord, you would show us what to be thankful for in the most thankless places. Lord, I thank you that you are the one who gives us that heart of gratitude. Lord, and it's most difficult many times to be grateful in the places where it's become commonplace. So guys, I just want to challenge us today as a workout. We have amazing worship every week, and it's very easy to take that for granted. But I got to tell you, worshiping by yourself can be hard. Worshiping with other people is harder still. And this team works so hard to come up with a common voice that we get to enter into. And I just want to say with all of us how grateful we are for the hard work. Guys, you are not doing a worship practice if you don't have some problems to overcome. You'll have them on Sunday. And I just want to say so grateful to all of you all. Thankful to Andre and his boys who run sound. Listen, if you don't have good sound, you can't. That's where you're not going to know to be thankful. But let me tell you, when it's not there, it makes a difference. And for those of you online, you're able to be with us online because of Brian and Jacob and his team. And guys, I just want to challenge us this week to walk grateful. We're not just grateful, but asking God, where should I be grateful? And if I'm not grateful, who do I need to forgive? But guys, we love you guys. Have an amazing Thanksgiving.
I think that would be an amazing idea to just to express to the people who serve us every week just how grateful we are.
Dan back with safety. I mean, so many, Christina back with words. Just be thankful. Ask him who you can thank and how you can thank them. And ladies, see Angie or Masha about going to hang out. But we love you guys. Be blessed.
For more information, go to ariselife.org or follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram.